On today's show, I'm joined once again by my friend Glen Willis of ATL in 29 to discuss another player capsule. This time it's Kobe Bufkin, his future, his present, and more coming up.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 2035 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you here in early August. And today's podcast is brought to you by the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. And right now, if you're a new customer, get $150 in terms of dollars in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins at FanDuel. I also want to encourage you at the top of the show, as I always do, to make Locked On Hawks your first listen each and every day. Check us out and subscribe to the show anywhere you find your podcast. That includes Apple, includes Spotify. We're also on YouTube, so please like this video as you're watching it. And, of course, be sure to tell your friends and your family and your colleagues about this podcast. Today, we'll be diving into Kobe Bufkin. If you missed it, over the last few weeks and even months, I've been doing a player capsule series with my friend Glen Willis of ATL in 29, where we kind of take a deep dive into players on the Hawks roster. Most recently, we did a look at some of the two-way guys on the roster. We have all kinds of backlog of these player capsules. And Mo Gay was also broken down recently on the podcast. And today, it's Kobe Bufkin. I will also plug our shows earlier on this week. I did a podcast about Trae Young when it came to De'Aaron Fox and kind of framing that conversation about his extension. Also did a show on Wednesday, actually, I guess Tuesday into Wednesday, with Frank Madden of Locked On Bucks, talking about the Bucks and a very interesting year to follow the Bucks because the Hawks have at least part of their unprotected first-round pick this season. So listen to those podcasts, tell your friends. But without any further delay, we'll dive in right now to myself and Glenn discussing Kobe Bufkin. I'm joined once again by my good friend Glen Willis, another player capsule on the horizon, and a guy we just talked about not that long ago because he played in Summer League. Glenn, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I think this should be a fun one, and I already anticipate the reaction in the comments. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I think we are objectively, the two of us, higher than Kobe Bufkin, than the fan base.
Yep.
You never want to pigeonhole the entire fan base, but that's my feel. Tyler Jones and I have joked together on this podcast that we don't really understand why people are so mad at Kobe, but maybe it is because of the injuries and all those things. We'll cover all that. And I also pledge to the listener right now, this will not be a two-parter. We're going to do Kobe in one part. Other guys, two parts, open, one part on Kobe. He hasn't played enough to not be one part. That's what I'll say. So Kobe Bufkin entering his third season, has not played very much. We know that. 21 years old as we're recording this. He'll be 22 in September, but he's actually younger than people realize because he wasn't even a one and done. Like, he was a two and done in college, but he was a very young two and done in college. For a reference point, he is younger than a couple of first round picks in this last draft. He's only 5 months older than Nikola Juricic, who sounds like he's a lot younger than Kobe, and he's really not. They're basically the same age. But clearly the headliner with Kobe is that he hasn't been healthy the last 2 years. He's played in 27 games in the NBA, plus 14 G League games, all his rookie season. He had the shoulder surgery back in January, came back for Summer League, looked fine in Summer League. Looked, at least to me, I saw some painting him like he had this disastrous Summer League, and I don't want to see that. He had some bad moments, sure. He had some good moments too. But Glenn, we already kind of talked around it, but I think we're higher on him than most. Where do you stand here in early August on the Kobe Bufkin experience, knowing that by all accounts, it's going to be a big training camp, big preseason, big everything for Kobe coming up?
Yeah, and then I presumably they're going to pick up his option, for next year.
I don't know, man. I don't know if I presume that. First, we'll talk about it, but it's not. It's enough money where it's not a no-brainer.
Yeah. So, for me, I love what I think Kobe can do. I say that while I also understand why Hawks fans might be frustrated with the fact that he hasn't been able to play much in 2 seasons with the injuries. To have been able to kind of really see what he can do requires that you watch him play some in the G League, right? And that's where a lot of the sample kind of comes from. And what pops, in the G League is that he really knows how to play defense. Like, he's a really, really smart defender, good help defender, good on ball. And then to me is like, I think he's going to be surprised. I think he will surprise people with what his defensive capabilities are. Now, because he hasn't played a ton, he probably still needs to learn how certain officiating crew is calling a game, how physical can I be, how physical, there's that calibration that only comes with playing and getting used to, like, oh, this ref calls it like this ref calls it like this crew calls it like that, and so there's just reps and experience that the baseline is just small, in both of those areas so far. And so I think there is going to be an adjustment period for him if he is presumably kind of in the lineup and in the rotation heading into the season. But I'm most excited for what he can kind of give them defensively. Offensively, I talked to Summerly when I did my own recap on Patreon, when I talked with Kevin and Tyler, did a kind of a wrap up. And then you and I talked a little bit too that, I think you and I probably saw the same thing up close, which was they wanted him to be super aggressive, like really, really aggressive. And it was good and bad,
Yep.
as he was kind of ramping that up. But the thing that you love about Kobe is that you ask him to do something and he goes out and he does his best to do it, right? Even if there's some, inconsistency, even if there's some, like I said, some good and bad. And I think that's one of the reasons the Hawks drafted Kobe is they love the mindset. They love his willingness to work through adversity, his willingness to be coached, his willingness to put the team first, all that sort of stuff. And so the human being side of things, you have a guy who really does fit the culture. But the experience and rep baseline is pretty small from an NBA standpoint now. So for fans who maybe feel like they don't really know what the Hawks can get from him, I understand that, especially if you don't have the luxury of seeing him play some in College Park and such.
Yeah, and look, acknowledging we both, I think, like him more than some do. I've been saying the whole time, like, there is a lot of uncertainty here. It's undeniable. I mean, and if you're the Hawks, I totally understand. Honestly, he was been around, but he's not. He's a new general manager. Quinn's been there the whole time. I mean, it's always been kind of out there that Quinn likes Kobe, and I've heard the same. But I mean, banking on Kobe is not something that I would advise. And I've been saying, even as someone who likes him, I would not advise that. I think the whole time I've been saying, yeah, I'm totally fine giving Kobe a chance and a real chance to earn playing time this season. I also have said you should not gift it to him in a way that you probably would have last year, coming into year 2 on a team that was still kind of retooling. I think if he had been healthy last year, he would have played a lot, whether he was playing great or not, honestly. But this year's different, like on a number of different levels. It's year 3, new GM, and I would say probably most importantly, a team that is clearly a different spot in terms of their trying to win cycle. They're really trying to win now, and Kobe, we don't know how good he's going to be. But also, what you said is perfectly applicable. Like he's shown a lot of different things. You have to look for what they are. And also, like, his pedigree does matter. They know what they saw in him when they drafted him. They've seen him play. I mean, a lot more than we have. There's practices and training camp stuff, and we didn't see that. So we just don't know. But there's enough on, especially on defense. I think he's actually, I don't know if I'd use the word proven because it's like such a small sample size, but like what he's shown as a professional defensively has been quite appetizing, like quite good.
For sure.
Offensively, much more of a mixed bag for sure. But yeah, I still believe that there's a prospect here. The age is still young. And yeah, I mean, he's been hurt. He said that, I mean, he owned it right away, talking to us in Vegas, talking about like, hey, haven't played in a long time. He owns it. He knows the deal here. I mean, it's not like these guys they're not silly. They're not robots. Like, they understand. He knows he's got to stay healthy. It's not breaking news. Like, he understands. He's got to play. So that's kind of the like intro of this whole thing. But he did play some time in the G League, which people have kind of forgotten, and that stuff matters. And look, he put up numbers in summer league. He averaged 19, 5, and 5. Basically, he got to the line a bunch. Didn't shoot it great. That's probably one certainly area of uncertainty with him. But as a theoretical player, there's still a lot to like there, and the way that there always was a lot to like. It's just that it hasn't been able to kind of come to fruition yet, and that is the biggest thing with Kobe. We can probably stop. Glenn, this could be the shortest podcast of all time. Let's sign off now. That's Kobe. I'm kind of kidding, but I'm also not kidding. It's just one of those things. Today's show is brought to you by OpenPhone. If you're running a business, you don't ever miss call. Is money left on the table potentially? And think about the last time you actually had an urgent need in your own life, perhaps for a plumber or a service provider. If that person didn't answer the first time, did you wait? You probably didn't. You probably moved on to something else, and that's why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system, and it's built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or your computer. OpenPhone also lets you manage your business calls and texts from a single app, and they have the shared inbox feature that's an absolute game changer. your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat whatsoever. And OpenPhone's AI agent as well will handle your calls after hours, answer common questions, and capture any leads so that you never actually miss a customer. And OpenPhone is also offering my listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonnba. That's OPENPHONE, openphone.com/lockedonnba. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over for you at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with you. The defense is, I think, really enticing. His ability to play on the ball, off the ball. He's a great communicator. He's for a guard. He's a surprisingly good organizer. Like if you watch him play College Park, he's organizing a lot, and those things. In that sense, it's all there. On offense, I think it is like, what does the role look like? Is he playing next to Kennard in those minutes? I think it's helpful if that is the case because. As I've talked about with Edmund and Hawk Speed, and then we talked a little bit with Kevin and Tyler, just having better offensive support, higher level veteran offensive around him is going to, I think, allow them to right size the offensive role for Kobe, right? I think the shot making is going to be important. Part of that just comes with playing consistently if that happens, in the season, playing more regularly, more consistency. But there's things like you watch him run a traditional pick and roll. And there, kind of break that down a little bit is he makes the right read. He sees what's happening and all those things. What some teams in summer league were doing, they were kind of jumping passing lanes and things like that. And that's I mean, Kobe hadn't played with most of those guys ever before that setting. So that kind of matters too. But what I'm interested in seeing is if they're going to let him run the second unit offense or co-run the second unit offense with Luke is when they're brushing the screen or slipping the screen, going faster, can he play faster, right? Because I think one of the most important things for guards who are running, say, middle pick and roll to do is to read what is the pace I need to have in this example based on how the other defenses, slipping is a great way to beat a hedge or a great way to be a temporary double or a great way to be a team is getting the center up to the level of the screen. And so can Kobe understand what pace is needed on a given execution, whether it's a straight, normal, traditional screen, a brush, or a slip? Can he do all forms of that? And I think that will come with reps, and so that's what I'm interested in seeing. Like, do they let him run, 10 to 12, pick and rolls in the preseason game and get through all three different forms of all of that? Can he run a guard to guard screen? And kind of, say Luke screening for him and popping to the 3-point line. There's a lot of diversity in how the Hawks kind of use pick and roll. And I'm anxious to see, can Kobe do all of it yet? And pace is a major factor in what you're trying to do in that pick and roll. And we haven't had a chance to see him, have to use all different forms of pace, setup, all that sort of stuff yet. And so I'm anxious to see kind of where he is in that part of his offensive game.
I agree. And I think something I'm reminding myself of too is like his role. Let's just presume for a second, this is not a guarantee at all. Let's presume for a second that he is in a backup point guard role at some point. He would operate that much differently than he would being the star on the G League team or being the star on the Summer League team. Like it's a different situation. You're playing differently. His aggressiveness level will probably go down a little bit. You're 100% right. Earlier, we talked about like the Hawks were coaching him to be as aggressive as possible, and sometimes it looked kind of silly at Summer League. Like he was really, really up in the usage on purpose. And look, Kobe isn't a elite passer. He was not built that way. He never was. He's always been more of a combo guard. He's a pretty good passer, but he's not Trae Young. Like I think he looks worse on a team and to a bunch of fans that are used to watching the best passing guard alive. he looks worse because Trae is so good in some ways. That sounds kind of funny, but I think it's true. But anyway, like I think the role will be very interesting. I think him and Kennard do make sense together. It's definitely a possibility, and we'll probably say this for later on a little bit, is that maybe Kobe just isn't going to be in the rotation, and maybe it's Kennard and Dyson or Kennard and Nikhil when Trae's off the court. That's also very possible. But I think if you put him with Kennard on both ends of the floor, that would make sense. On defense, you got Kobe to guard the better player in the backcourt. And on offense, you've got Kennard to give you A, spacing, and B, a second ball handler. Because at Summer League, the time, at least to me, the time when Kobe looked the worst in summer league is when he was the only guy on the court that could handle the ball, which did happen a bunch of times, and it did not look great when that happened. And that's fair. I think that's maybe he'd get there eventually, but I don't think he's ever going to be like I am the only guy. I am doing the Trae Young role ball handling at the NBA level. I think he's going to be more of a secondary. Even if he is the primary, he won't be like the primary in the way that some other guys might be. Does that make sense? What I said? I don't know.
Yeah, it does. When in summer league, when Nico was on with him, he had that other ball handler to help him.
Yep.
Flagler, they were trying to kind of get him on ball a little bit more. That's the first time that in his professional career he'd really kind of been playing some point guard. If you've kind of watched him play at other places and stuff like that. And there really, really wasn't a lot else there. So, but I mean, I think the Hawks wanted him to experience like, okay, you're the only ball handler on the floor. You're going to see two at the level of the screen. Like, how do you deal with that? How do you work through that? And and some Hawks fans will be like, oh man, he sucks. First of all, he doesn't. Second of all, they were wanting him to deal with that stuff, to see that stuff and learn how to deal with it. And he got better game by game at it, and all that sort of stuff. But I think Kobe is probably reason number one I'm most excited about the Kennard edition, because I think he's just going to have more offensive structure. Kennard is an absolute A+ professional on offense, makes the right play all the time, can shoot the ball, all that sort of stuff. And I think Nickeil Alexander-Walker, if he's playing when Dyson's off, for example, has a little bit more offensive juice than people realize as well. He's made himself into a real shooter, and he's a reasonable ball handler and creator as well. So last year with all the injuries and and guys that were playing on the second unit after Jalen went down, all that sort of stuff, it would have been ugly for Kobe. They would need Kobe to do a lot. This year, he has a lot more veteranship and structure and capability around him, such that I think he's going to be more set up for success, presuming he's going to be playing on that second unit consistently. We don't know for sure that's the plan. Well, I think we have to wait till we get to October and kind of see what we see. But for me, I think he needs to play. I think it's very important for him to play.
It would be helpful for sure in evaluating him for him to play and for his growth for him to play. The only give and take of that is that, again, not to oversay it, but like this is a team that's in a different spot now. They're trying to win, and that does not mean counter to what Nate McMillan once said. You don't stop doing development because you're trying to win, but it's a little bit different now, where every game is going to have a little bit more meaning than it did before. And I know Quinn will feel that, et cetera. And it's like, all right, if they don't think he's one of their best 10 guys, they're not going to put him out there very much.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Like, there's a little bit of a tightrope to walk there. You could see him. I don't think this is going to happen, but you could see Kobe play a little bit in the G League. Wouldn't stun me if that happened. We'll see. Anyway, I do people think, it's 14 games, but he did really, really pop in the G League the one time he played there. It's been a year and a half since he played there, but he averaged 24, 6, and 5 in the G League in 14 games. It was like very, very clearly dominating when he was down there. It's been a while, but that did happen. That's a good sign. Two things I want to bring up about his scoring / shooting. One is he was at the college level a dominant finisher for a guard by the numbers, like elite synergy profile. He shot almost 70% at the rim in half court. He was just awesome. That hasn't necessarily materialized in the professional level. And I'm not saying it can't, but that's a question I have, and I would say much more of a doubt that I have now compared to where I was at the draft 2 years ago. That's one thing. And the other one is whether he can make threes. And that's much more eye of the beholder. Which sample do you trust? He shot 30% in the G League, which is good. He took more threes in the G League in 14 games than he actually almost twice as many in 14 games as he did in his entire NBA career, because he was just taking more shots in the G League. He shot well in the G League, not well in the NBA. I don't know where his baseline is from three. If you do, Glenn, I'd love to know, but I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to say I'm not a professional shooting coach. But it looks fine to me. It looks consistent to me. That's about as far as I'll go in trying to kind of evaluate that. But for me, it really is about shot prep and footwork and all that sort of stuff, being ready to kind of shoot it on the catch. It's going to be interesting to see kind of where he is coming in. I mean, a big part of becoming a consistent shooter is just playing consistently. developing the rhythm that comes with playing, if he plays, say, 14 minutes every game, or even if that's what it is, and those things, it's just being on the floor. And so for me, for a guy who's been hurt, has had several injuries to kind of work through and deal with and kind of come back from, I'm curious to see just if he can stay healthy, right? And the other thing we'll mention, like as Summer League up close, you could see he's much stronger than he was a year. I mean, he's really put on a lot of muscle. He was had much more well-defined body. And so you hope that helps him, kind of be a little bit more injury-proof than he's been in the past and all of that. But for me, I have a hard time evaluating guys' shooting numbers if he just hasn't been able to play consistently, because I think there is kind of a rhythm aspect to that. But also, I don't want to sit here and predict he's going to shoot 37, 38, 39% from the three-point line.
Yeah.
We won't know until we kind of get to October and see what his role is, where he is in the pecking order, how much he's playing, and then see how he does. I don't want to prejudge that.
I would say if I had to give a projection on Kobe shooting, it would be somewhere in like the mid 30s from three. I don't know what that means. The mid 30s is like 33 to 37. That's a big range, but I don't know. It's I good luck trying to figure it out. I mean, I don't know, but it matters. I mean, that's the thing. I do think that he's a guy that is going to need to make some threes with his profile. He's not a super elite athlete. He's not a super elite ball handler. He isn't a super elite passer. Like, he's going to have to make some shots, and that's the reality. And if you're skeptical that he will, then you probably don't like Kobe Bufkin. Like, I get it too. Like, I do, especially on offense. This was brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Summer sports are now in full swing. Whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the greens, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best possible way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little bit more thrilling for yourself? You can use FanDuel to check all their matchups and also keep the app fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. They have offerings across the sports betting space at FanDuel that includes point spreads and over-unders, money lines, game props, future bets, player props, live betting, and same-game parlays all in one place. And they have everything on sport and league you can think of as well at FanDuel. And, of course, includes the NBA, which we discuss all the time on this podcast, plus the NFL, MLB, college sports, NHL, UFC, golf, tennis, soccer, boxing, and everything in between. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and even makes regular season games feel like they're actually must-watch events. Whether you're placing a same-game parlay or just watching a bet in baseball right into the late innings, at FanDuel, to make it feel like you're part of the actual action. And if you're new to FanDuel, if you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins at FanDuel. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. On defense, like we mentioned earlier, but I think people have almost forgotten that like he was really NBA level good defensively, like immediately. And that wasn't a huge surprise if you looked at like his profile. Like, he was supposed to be a good defender eventually, but like it didn't. Even as a rookie, like he was pretty effective defensively. It's been a while, I get that, but I pulled some numbers. I won't share them all because it would go long. But according to Clean the Glass, in his minutes at point guard, so basically when he's not playing with Trey, the Hawks defense was 95th percentile as a unit. That isn't all Kobe. But I think the theory of Kobe being able to be a part of a really good defense, I totally believe. Like, if you put Kobe out there with the rest of the Hawks personnel, like, you can have some really good defensive lineups. Like, if you can keep, especially if you can keep Kennard off the floor. We talked about Kennard and Kobe making sense, and they do. But if you put Kobe out there with like 4 good defenders, I think you'd have a pretty darn good defense. So that's an area we should always bring up. I'm not sure what you want to talk. What did you see from him in his, again, limited sample size, but as far as like, on-ball stuff, screen navigate, like what do you make of Kobe's defensive arsenal as we know it in these small sample size?
He's just such a smart and locked in defender, right? And so for me, I remember like I don't remember if it's the beginning of last season and watching him play. I think I said on Twitter at one point that he could be a defensive culture setter. Like, he is so bought into his attention to details through the roof. He's so engaged on that end of the floor. His communication, organization, exceptional for a guy of his experience level. Always in the right place, and is just always looking to be resourceful and helpful and do something that helps his team. And so I do think that's where he's going to kind of make his biggest mark on this next season. Having him on with either Dyson or Nickeil Alexander-Walker, for example, gives you another guy. And I think we talked about earlier, I think Ricochet is going to be another guy who we see real growth at the point of attack. I don't know if we want him on point guards, but I don't know why not. But it is the defense, and it's one of those things where as the offense needs to become more consistent and stable, the defense will, I think, keep Kobe on the floor and give him an opportunity to kind of, and sort of like we talked about with Veet, is that his offensive value buys you a chance to kind of live with some of his limitations on defense. With Kobe's opposites, the defensive value gives you, I think, reason to have him on the floor while he is learning to kind of grow and become more consistent and stable offensively. And so that's where my expectation is. I think offensively he's going to be up and down in the start of the season just because he hasn't had, like we talked about, the experience and rep baseline is so low at the NBA level right now. But I think he gives you enough defensively to make a good case for having him playing every night. Will that be the decision Quinn makes? I don't know. But I think what he gives you defensively is enough to justify him being a guy you're in continue investing in.
Yeah, and look, we can kind of end on this as far as like the role and the team option. And I like to tell people when I don't know things, and I don't know on Kobe in general right now. Like I've heard things. I shared some reporting, during after summer league that like I heard a lot of positive stuff from the Hawks about Kobe around summer league. I did, and I also gave the caveat I'll give now, like they're not really incentivized to say bad things about Kobe to people like me because like he's on their team, like it is what it is. But they also don't like these people that I talk to don't usually lie to me, so it's like I think they still like Kobe. But we have to acknowledge repeatedly the uncertainty here, and I get asked all the time, like, is Kobe a draft bust? Like, no, not right now. Could he be one? Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's definitely on the table. Like, I still like the player and the archetype of the player. But if this season doesn't go well for him, he'll probably move on teams, I would say, at some point, whether it's either in a salary dump or if they decline a team option or whatever. Like, usually you don't get a fourth year if your third year is still like a total incomplete, he gets hurt again or whatever. Even if it's not his fault, that's just kind of the way this goes sometimes. But also, I think that there's a scenario where he's playing 15 minutes on opening night. Like, there could be that. There could be him not playing at all. We don't really know. I think it's kind of a no-duh. But training camp and preseason are as big for him as they are for anybody on the roster. Maybe bigger, honestly. If you were to say, okay, Brad, and I'll ask you, Glenn, if you disagree with me or not. If somebody asked me, like, who is October 1 through like October 20, whatever it is that opening night will be, who is the player on the roster that has the most at stake in that 3-week period? It's probably Kobe Bufkin.
Yeah, agreed. And I think it's gonna be interesting to see like if he plays a ton in the preseason and they steer a lot of usage towards him and make him run the offense and how that goes and all that sort of stuff is going to be interesting to see. I think he's worth the investment personally, but I'm not the decision maker here, in any way. But I think I know he's the cultural fit they would look for in players. He's absolutely that. And I know, and I believe in his defensive value. Completely fair to say, again, offensively, there's some growth that's going to be needed, which requires experience, reps, and all that sort of stuff. But he's a smart player. He just needs experience, But, we keep going back. The Hawks are trying to win a lot of games this year. Mm-hmm. And they're going to build a rotation that sets them up to win games. And there might be games where Kobe plays in the first half, doesn't play in the second half if it didn't go well. They shorten that rotation second half. That might be a thing that happens. But I'm still a big believer. But I also understand Hawks fans that are like, Glenn, we haven't really seen anything out of him. True. That's a true statement, Yep. Even if I still personally believe in him a lot right now. But, might be putting, the cart before the horse or whatever. But I'm rooting for him because I just like, what he conveys personally, the kind of teammate he is, all that sort of stuff, how coachable he is, all that sort of stuff. And so I'm hoping that it goes well, but also I'm not going to shout down people, Hawks fans that might be like, I need to see it. Okay, yeah, fair.
So do they. I mean, they need to see it too. So there is a line to walk, and I think we fall on the more positive. And I think we would, even if we didn't like Kobe, we would still fall on this line of like, guys, it's not, I mean, injuries are different. Like if he had just been awful for 2 years, that would be a different discussion. Like it would still for me, I would want to put some nuance forward on that. But him not playing because of injuries, it's like, I mean, I get what people are annoyed by that or bothered, but it's not anybody's fault. He just got hurt. To put a number on it, just because it's not what we usually do when you and I talk, so I wanted to save it for the end. But there's the team option for Kobe. It's for the fourth year. So if you're on a rookie scale contract, first round pick, you have to decide a year in advance about the third and fourth year options. The Hawks have had a bunch of no-brainers on these for a long time because they've had some good first-round picks. This is the first one in a while they have a real decision on, honestly. Kobe, it's $6.9 million for his fourth season. So this coming season, he's locked in, no change. This is for the following year. But they have to decide by the end of October. So basically, they get all training camp, all the preseason, and like the first probably 4 or 5 games of regular season play to decide. And then they have to choose. And if they decline it, he's still on the team, but he will be a free agent at the end of the season. And that's not like look, there are plenty of examples of guys who've had their options decline that don't like fall out of the league. Like Jake LaRavia is the most prominent one recently. He had his option decline in Memphis. And all that really changes is that the Hawks wouldn't be allowed to offer Kobe a contract for more than that at the end of the season. And then he becomes a free agent. So, like, it's not a death sentence if he gets the option declined, but that's a decision the Hawks have to make. And it's honestly their next, like, major roster decision that they're made to make. Obviously, Dyson's extension and trade extension are bigger deals. But Kobe, they have a deadline. October 31st. We'll see. So just want to throw it out there. That's why at the beginning of this conversation we brought it up. And that's a real investment. It's not like if it was $3 million, you just pick it up and whatever. But $7 million, that's real money.
It's going to be a data point that informs us quite a bit in terms of what they do and don't do. So
we will learn a lot about how they feel about Kobe on October 31st.
There you go.
And usually they wait. Even ones that are absolutely no-brainers, they will basically always just wait till the last minute. Like last year, they had 2 absolute no-brainer ones, and they just did it anyway. Like they just did it. They waited forever. Like Dyson's third year, whatever. This year, you got Zach's third year. That will be a no-brainer. That's a no-brainer one. Like obviously, they're going to pick that up. Kobe's not a no-brainer. But because they, as an organization, always wait till the last minute, that doesn't mean that they're wavering. But I think it is useful for them to use that literally 4 weeks of data. Like usually it doesn't really impact anything, honestly. Like they kind of decide way ahead of time, and it's like, okay, if this guy breaks his leg, we'll have a different discussion kind of thing. This one, it's like they're actually going to be taking that into account all the way to the end, I feel like. So we'll learn a lot. Well, Glenn, we did it. 1 part on Kobe Bufkin. Unless you have more to add, feel free to add some if you'd like to. But we're only doing 1 part. I pledge that at the beginning of this podcast.
Yeah, no, I feel like we covered it, and like I said, I think the YouTube comments are gonna be super interesting on this one. But like I said, I do want to acknowledge that Hawks fans that feel frustrated or like we haven't a chance to see him. Not going to push back on that, but I'm trying to be as I usually am. I'm trying to be optimistic and excited for Kobe to hopefully have a healthy season and see what he can do.
You are usually more optimistic than I am in general, so I'm optimistic too, relatively speaking. I'm definitely higher than Hawks fans, it seems like. Glenn, as I always do at the end of these, please plug anything you got going on in your life. I know that by the time we record this, I don't know when this is going to be going up. It'll be relatively soon after we record it, but what's going on? ATL 29, Patreon, what's going on?
Yeah, those are the things. So Patreon, and I'm using this kind of dead season to put out 2 to 3 a week of 20, 25-minute video on player breakdown and stuff like that. The first one went out was a Kongwu. I had a little bit of Bogey in there too, and stuff. Probably next one, I think I'm going to do some Nicole Alexander Walker next, so Hawks to kind of see what he has. But I'll be putting out 2 to 3 a week between now and the end of September, and we'll get to everybody in that range. And then when I don't know when media day is going to happen, and I don't know when all that stuff kind of restarts and stuff, but hopefully the video content will kind of tide us over until we have some news to talk through and things like that. And of course, we're also kind of waiting to see if they do anything or not with that last roster spot.
If I had a guess for media day, it's probably like September 29. Usually that's that Monday at the end of September, early October. That's I don't know. No one's told me yet. That's generally like the range it's in. We still got, as we're recording this, we're still like 8 weeks, something like that. So it's coming though. It comes faster than you think, or slower if you are tasked with podcasting throughout the month of August and September. I wish it would come faster. But Glenn, thanks for being here as always. I appreciate you sincerely for doing all of this to give me a bunch of time. As for everybody else, please subscribe to Locked On Hawks anywhere you find your podcasts, and we'll see you all next time.